Sarah and her family arrived at their dream home, a beautiful, old Victorian house with intricate woodwork, towering spires, and a charm that seemed frozen in time. They were excited to start their new chapter, unaware of the chilling secrets hidden within these walls. The first night was peaceful, but as Sarah lay in bed, a faint whisper echoed through the hallway. She dismissed it as the old house settling, a quirk of its age. But the whispers persisted, soft and unintelligible, like a voice trying to call out from the darkness. Over the next few days, the whispers grew louder, almost purposeful. Sarah began hearing her name faintly, as if the house itself was trying to get her attention. Even her children noticed the strange sounds, and the family started avoiding certain parts of the house. Unable to ignore the whispers any longer, Sarah decided to investigate. Following the sound into the basement, she stumbled upon a crumbling section of the wall. As she pried it open, she uncovered a hidden room filled with dust, cobwebs, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Inside the hidden room, Sarah found a decayed diary resting on a small wooden table. The pages were brittle, but the words were still legible. The diary belonged to the house's previous owner, who wrote about hearing voices from the walls, urging him to commit unspeakable acts. Sarah's heart raced as she read the last entry. It warned, "The whispers grow stronger when they're hungry." At that moment, the whispers stopped. Silence filled the room. And then, directly behind her, a voice spoke her name, clear and cold. When Sarah's husband returned home later that evening, he found the basement door wide open. Sarah was gone, and the diary lay closed on the table. On the wall, scrawled in jagged letters, were the words, "We needed her." Mark and Julia were thrilled to find an affordable rental home in the city. It was a bit older and tucked away on a quiet street, but they saw it as a fresh start. What they didn't know was that the house came with a tenant, one they couldn't see. At first, the strange occurrences were easy to dismiss. Julia noticed objects not where she'd left them, and Mark occasionally smelled something foul, like decaying wood, but the feeling of being watched was something neither of them could ignore. While exploring the attic, Julia found an old, dusty photo album. Flipping through its pages, she saw pictures of a family from decades ago. But what stood out most was the shadowy figure in the background of every photo, unmistakable, yet faceless. Concerned about what she found, Julia spoke to an elderly neighbor. The woman's face darkened when Julia mentioned the house. She revealed the chilling truth. The previous tenant had vanished without a trace, and locals believed he never truly left. That night, Mark woke suddenly, his chest heavy with dread. Turning his head, he saw it. A dark figure standing silently in the corner of their bedroom. Its outline was human, but it had no face, no features, just darkness. It didn't move. It simply watched. The next morning, Julia woke to find Mark sitting at the kitchen table, pale and trembling. He muttered, "It was right there, watching me." As they packed to leave, the shadow appeared again, this time in broad daylight, standing by the front door, blocking their way. Panicked, they ran past the shadow and out of the house. As they drove away, they looked back to see the figure standing in the upstairs window, watching them leave. They never returned. But the shadow still lingers, waiting for the next tenants. James and Mia were thrilled to move into their new home. A spacious, charming old house tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. As they unpacked, they couldn't help but marvel at their fresh start. But something about the house felt off. While exploring the hallway, James noticed something strange. A door that wasn't on the blueprints of the house. It was an unassuming wooden door, slightly ajar, as though inviting them inside. When they opened the door, they found a room that didn't seem to belong. It was empty, except for a single chair facing the wall. The air inside was unnaturally cold, and the silence was almost deafening. James and Mia decided to lock the room and leave it alone. But every time they returned, the door was open again. No matter how many times they locked it, the door always found a way to swing open. Determined to catch the culprit, James set up a camera facing the door. But when they reviewed the footage, their blood ran cold. The door opened and closed on its own, as though pushed by invisible hands. Terrified, they decided to demolish the room once and for all. But as the workers began tearing down the walls, they made a grim discovery. Bones buried within the walls, along with an old crumbling note. The house grew colder, and the atmosphere more oppressive. That night, James and Mia heard the sound of the chair scraping across the floor from behind the closed door. They realized too late. The room had been disturbed, and it wasn't done with them yet.